Welcome to the fourth of our SketchUp tutorials. Today I'm going to be modeling a simple medicine cabinet or small wall cabinet. You can take this basic formula and adjust it. So you can make something that's wider, something that's taller, tall skinny cabinet, wide bookshelf. The concepts are there. You just need to take the ideas and adjust them to any given shelf that you're modeling. So today I'm working in millimeters. I'm pushing myself. I'm going out of my comfort zone and working in millimeters. I'm going to make a cabinet that's 400 millimeters wide, 180 millimeters deep, and I'm going to start straight off, as I always do, push pull, 600 millimeters tall. That's a little skinnier than I was looking for. I'm just going to pull this 50 millimeters to the right. That gives me 450 by 600, which is a 3 to 4 ratio in terms of width to height. Don't need to know that. It doesn't always matter. Sometimes it does. Okay, so I'm not going to turn this into a component yet. I'm going to do a little bit more work. Um, what I'm going to do is offset that by 20 millimeters. I clicked too hard. I want to offset that by 20 millimeters. It's letting me do it this time. So that's basically the thickness that I'm going to deal with. I'm making the carcass. I will be showing you the shelves here. And I'm, I'm going to do some slightly more advanced work here in terms of laying things out. So I'm going to use the move tool and do something called an array. We can do a multiply array. I think we did that in our first tutorial where we took the square and we moved it over so that we had 4 in a row. This time I'm going to do a division array. So I'm taking the move tool, I've hit control, going to drag it down to the bottom here, and then I'm going to hit 3 forward slash or 3 divided by. What it's done is taken that length and divided it by 3. I'm going to say that I'd like to keep those measurements the same. I'd like the spaces on the inside to be evenly divided. The way I'm going to accomplish that is bringing in my tape measure tool, and I'm just moving 10 millimeters above and below both of those lines. So I'm actually going to be deleting those lines I've just used. I used those so that I don't have to do math, so that I don't have to divide whatever that measurement was um, by 3. Okay, I guess that would be 560 divided by 3, I suspect. Um, so I'll divide those lines. I'm going to put rectangles in here, and instead of, you know what, it's okay. I can put rectangles in just like that. What I'm doing is basically building shelves. I'm also, on this one, going to show you dados. So I'm putting a guideline in each direction by 6 millimeters. I make sure that goes on the blue so that when I draw this and then erase these 2 little stubs, it makes it look like I've got dados. So instead of modeling the whole piece, instead of modeling the dados, it just looks like they're there. Now it's not much of a cabinet. I can't put anything into it. So I'm going to do a push-pull, and I'm moving that in 160 millimeters. It's just a number I chose. I'll do the same in all 3 spots. Now notice what I'm doing. I'm pushing that in, but I'm inferencing to one of the locations above so that those 3 pockets, those 3 areas are 160 millimeters deep. You'll notice at the bottom that it's showing 160. So that happened pretty naturally. If you want to put some details on the back, maybe a breadboard, it's totally possible. You can draw some lines. I'm not going to at this point. I'm quite happy with that for my basic carcass. I'm going to hit G, call it the carcass, call it the box, and there it is. There's my basic first part. Okay, so it's working out so far. When I build a cabinet like this, if I'm putting a door on it, I like to put a little bit of a trim piece on the sides. This is going to work because that cabinet is a component. If this wasn't a component, if you didn't turn that into a component, this next step will drive you mental. It'll drive you nuts. So I'm just going to make two trim pieces, 600 millimeters by 50 millimeters. I'm going to push pull that by 20. Again, if you didn't make this into a component, um, I can't help you. I'm sorry. You're going to hate it. So I triple click, and notice when I triple click, it's not selecting the other components. I hit G, I'm going to call it door trim. It'll probably say, I built this earlier, I made a mistake, so I've got a lot of hidden components in here. So move tool, control, I now have two pieces of door trim. Nice and easy. That gives me somewhere that I can put hinges on really nicely, and it gives me somewhere that we can put a latch so that you can lock the door closed with it, just a little spinny thing. Okay, I am going to model a door. I'm going to model a door really quickly. I'm going to establish a guideline at the top, a guideline at the bottom. I'm also going to establish little 2 millimeter gaps because when you do build this, if you ever build this in real life, you need a spot to put the hinge. The hinge does take up a little bit of airspace. And so when I draw this, I'm going to zoom in really closely and make sure, I guess I don't need to zoom in personally manually. I can just use the scroll button on my mouse, but that gives me a little bit of a gap. You can see it there in the corner. That gives me a little gap to make sure that the door will swing without rubbing against anything. I'm just going to push pull this, and I'm push pulling it 18 millimeters, so I have a gap at the back as well. Okay. Before I make that into a component, I'm going to turn it into a pretend shaker door. So I'll bring that in by 50 millimeters. I'll push pull the panel in by 6, and there it is. If you want to model the door really accurately, you can absolutely model that door for real life as many details as you'd like. If you want to just give a kind of an indication of what it will look like, you can absolutely do that with the line tool. But if you want to model it piece by piece, draw a rectangle, push pull, add some joinery, turn it all into a component. It's totally up to you. So group, I'll call it door, and we've now got a door. If you'd like, you can hit Q. Q gives us the rotate tool. By the way, you can make multiples by rotating. So yeah, I'm opening the door, I'm rotating it, but I can set up a bunch of those if I want. I don't want to copy, I just want it to look like the door's open. Okay, so we can show people what's happening inside of our cabinet. Okay, so that's a pretty good start. If you were going to make this to sit on the floor like a traditional bookshelf, you'd have a little kick at the bottom of this. You'd have the sides extend, you'd have these pieces extend, and a little kick underneath. It's all good. We're just playing around with modeling a cabinet. Let me take a look at showing you how I would model this door if I was going to do it for real with real joinery. I've got enough time. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. This won't fit. I'm just going to make it 300 let's make it 350 millimeters, 18 millimeters deep. I'm going to push pull that 50 millimeters, and that's basically my bottom rail. So that's a bottom rail. If every piece for the door is 50 millimeters thick, what I am going to do is bring a line in by 6 millimeters, bring a line in by 6 millimeters. That gives me a third. And if I draw this down for 50 millimeters, come on, 50, oh, it's not happy. Something happened. 50 millimeters, I'll bring it across, back again, push pull, down 50 millimeters. That's an open lap joint. I've actually drawn this backwards. I want the opposite. So instead, I'm bringing this down 50. Oh, I moved the mouse. That's the problem. Moved the mouse. Push pull. You can push pull from the front. So let's do that over here. I'm going to inference off this point. Bring my mouse over. You'll notice, hopefully you can see that dotted line. So then when I draw a blue line, there it is. It locks in on the edge. I can take that in 6 millimeters, and I've now got, I'm now stuck in the cabinet. Help me, I'm stuck in the cabinet. Okay, makes sense? So I have to do the same thing at the other end. I'm not going to at the moment. You can figure it out. Group, I'm calling it my rail. Rails are horizontal. If you think about trains, the rail is horizontal. When I go to draw my style, which is the vertical piece, I'm going to start here, and I want the rectangle to be looking like it's red. So there we are. I'm going 600, comma 18. I think that's what I did before. Push pull that. Control Z, push pull. I want it to come this way. Please lock on. There it is, on the edge. So that gives me my basic. At the moment, that doesn't have the joinery information in it. So if I move this straight up, you'll notice it's a solid block. I'm going to cheat because I know the geometry here. 50, 6, push pull. That's a nice thing about using a measurement that's a multiple of 3 in this case. So that would be my style. I would do the same thing. I should have called it style, but I could do the same thing at the other end. And that's one way of actually modeling your joinery. Okay, you could put a dado in here, have your panel separate. Anyways, you can go as crazy as you want in terms of using actual pieces that represent the wood we're going to use. To finish this off, I'm going to draw a rectangle here. So just drawing a rectangle. I'm going to make a little bit of trim to finish off the top of the cabinet. It's an interesting tool. I'm just going to go 100, 20. So I just drew a rectangle that's on the green axis. Going to come out and I'm doing this by eye. Don't freak out. I'm doing this by eye. I'm sorry. I'm going to make a fancy little trim bit. I didn't want that actually. I'm just going to go with an arc from there. And I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I do want it to say on the face when I do this. I'll go up, over, up. I'm starting to run out of time, which is why I'm not playing around with measurements anymore. And this can get frustrating. This tool can get a little bit frustrating. What I'm using is the push pull tool. Sorry, I'm using the follow me tool. I could do the push pull, but it won't go around corners. So follow me will go around corners. So if I bring it over here, I can actually get all the way around there. I did that a little bit fast. I will undo and redo. Control Z. I can get it to follow lines. So you can draw a circle, you can draw curves, whatever you want. That went a little bit far, but you get the idea. I would want it to finish there. Triple click, group, call it trim. I'm done for the day. Try modeling some kind of a shelf or cabinet using these techniques. Upload the image file and play around with it. Enjoy it.